Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me for another video. Joe here with Tufel Gun and Armory, and today's video is going to be a really fun one. We're going to start out by getting an initial pull weight on our Taurus model A56. Then I'm going to tear it down, sand and polish some of the internal components, get another pull weight, and then I'm going to tear it down again, replace springs, and get a third pull weight. So you'll kind of be able to see factory and aftermath. And without further ado, let's get started. The first part of any video is safety. Therefore, since I'm going to be working with internal components as well as doing some sanding, I don't want anything flying into my eyes. So I got my eye protection on. And the next part, we need to make sure that there's no live ammunition in the workspace, which there is not. And then we need to make sure that there is nothing in the piece that we are working on, which there is not. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and place that revolver into this vise, and we're going to get our initial pull weights. Okay, so now that we have our revolver secured in the vise, I'm going to take my Lyman pull weight gauge and I'm going to take a few readings and kind of take an average to see where we're sitting at for our initial pull. $11 1/4. $11 1/8. $11 1/8. So it's sitting right there in between 11 and 11.5 pounds. That's pretty heavy for a handgun, not so much for a revolver, but we're going to see if we can't go ahead and get that lightened up a bit anyways. The next part of this video is to go ahead and tear down this revolver. Since I've already covered that in detail on another video, we're just going to skip right through it and I'll be right back. All right, so now that we have the revolver taken apart, I'm going to be using some layout dye and coating the working surfaces of the revolver to include the inside of the frame, the inside of the side plate, the hammer and sear, hand, and cylinder stop. And what that's going to do is when I put it all back together, I'm going to be able to cycle it through the cycle of operations, and it's going to create markings in that layout dye where pieces are rubbing where they should not be, whether it's burrs or high points or whatever. And I'll be able to go in and tear it back down, sand it, polish it, and put it all back together. And we should not have those markings anymore. And it should result in a decrease of our felt pull. So with that being said, I'm going to do that now. Yeah, there we go. So we're just coating it with some layout dye, and we're going to let that dry. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to put the revolver back together. We're going to cycle it through the cycle of operations a few times, and then we're going to take it back apart. Be right back. Okay, so now that we have the revolver put back together with the layout die on those components, I'll be able to run it through the cycle of operations, and we'll be able to see exactly where it's dragging, if at all. Yes, I know I don't have the grip on it. It's not important for the cycle of operations, so we're going to do that now. Okay, so now I'm going to tear this back apart and we'll be able to see exactly where it's dragging. All right, so now that we have it torn apart, you can clearly see areas where there are high raises that are dragging. So if I hold this, if I shine this in the light, you can see like all along the hammer right here, all that is areas that are dragging. Because the layout die has been rubbed off on it. Where the cylinder stop meets the cylinder, right there on the edge, that is also dragging. And there's just a couple of places inside the frame. So you can see right here where that corresponding spot on the hammer is. It's dragging right there. And then we actually have a small area right back here in the trigger well that is a high spot too, that we can go ahead and take care of. So with that being said, now I'm going to go pull out the rotary tool, get to sanding, and I will be right back. Okay, so the next step of the process is to actually do the work that we tore the firearm apart to perform. So I have my rotary kit, I have my different bits, and it is very important to understand that you can always take material off, but you can't put material back on. So if you have to repeat steps, don't be afraid to, little by little. That's the biggest thing, is do it little by little. And without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so now that that is done, I'm going to go ahead and re-blue it and put it back together and repeat the process just to see if there are any spots that are still dragging. And then we will go from there. All right, so we have the revolver disassembled again and probably got it about halfway. So if you look, there's still some decently significant rubbing going on towards the back of where the hammer would be. And not so much on the hammer, but you still got just this little bit right here. And then the hand is good. The cylinder stop is good. And the side plate is good. So with that being said, now it's time to redo those steps. So I ended up doing this process about 3 times, and I got it about 80% of the way done. However, there is still a little bit of rubbing. Let me see if I can get a good light angle on it. Right back here along the back side of the frame where the hammer falls in. So, but on the hammer itself, I have eliminated the rubbing as well as on the hand and the other parts. So that is really the only part that's left. And I would rather it stay like that than try something to try to, fix that without the proper tools and then ending up rendering the firearm unsafe because I've done something that compromises the integrity of it. That being said, now it is time to apply acetone to get any oils or materials off. And then we're going to be applying some permablue to refinish the parts that I've sanded down. Okay, so now we're set up to and prepped to blue the parts to get them back to where they were. I got some hand sanitizer right here, which is basically denatured alcohol. I have some cotton swabs, cotton patches, and a paper towel for setting them on to dry. That'll allow them not to pick up any more dirt, debris, hand oils, and everything else like that. Then I'm going to blue it and let it sit, and then we're going to continue that process, repeating those steps until it's blued as close to matching the original finish as possible. And then we're going to let that dry, put some light lubrication on it, and it will be complete. I will put the first layer of bluing on video just so everybody sees, and then the finished product. But I don't know how many steps it's going to take, how many times through the steps. So I don't want to bore you with just a repeat over and over and over again. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, now everything is back to shiny silver and cleaned, and now it is just drying, and we can take a little bit of a break while we wait for that to dry and come back in about a minute or so and put the bluing back on. Okay, so now that the parts are dry, now we can go ahead and apply our layer of permablue to it, and then I'm going to set it right back on the paper towel to dry so it doesn't catch debris or anything like that. And then we will allow that to dry and come back and assess. I'll show you how it is, and then I'll go through and repeat as necessary. So, be right back. All right, so it's been about 5 minutes, and some of these are going to take more layers than others, but as you can see, the hammer is almost done. But pieces like the side plate and the frame still have a significant amount of discoloration. So I'm going to continue bluing, and when I come back, I will have the revolver all assembled again, and then I'm going to put it in the vise and test the trigger pull again and see how much of a difference all that work actually made. Then we're going to move on into the springs. So be back soon. All right, so now that we've gotten them back together, just first thoughts, it feels a whole lot smoother than it did, especially when it comes to the cylinder spinning and you don't really, there wasn't much to begin with, but you don't really hear a whole lot of that mechanical sound, metal dragging on metal, that you did when I first got it. So with that being said, let's throw it into the vise and see if there's any difference. Remember, we were at right around 11.25 to 11.5 pounds for the trigger pull, which is pretty significant. But let's see if, maybe we shaved off a half a pound or something. All right, so now that we got it secured back in the vise, we're going to use our pull gauge to see if there's been any difference. 11 1/8. 11 1/8. 11 1/8. Okay, so we took off somewhere between 1/8 and a half a pound off of our pull weight, which when you're at 11.5 pounds, initially that's pretty significant, because the higher you go up in trigger weight, the more that first shot counts if something were to happen. So if you can get that pull lighter, it'll be less duress on your hands and better shot placement, because also you have a level of anticipation when you're working with that heavy trigger. You're just waiting for it to break, and the heavier the trigger is, you're like, okay, when's it coming, and then it goes off, and it kind of makes you jump because you were expecting it, but you were also anticipating that shot, so you kind of jerk it. So any improvement can help greatly. Overall, I don't really feel like there's a whole lot that I could have done to make this process any smoother. I stay pretty organized as far as my workspace. I tend to brainstorm everything that I need prior to, so I don't have to keep walking to and from the toolboxes. Sometimes it's inevitable and you're going to have to, but if you take a few minutes to think about what you're going to need, you can have it all ready to go prior to. I would say the only thing that I could have really done differently is to make sure I had proper bits, as far as bits that are small enough to really get into those tiny grooves that would have helped a lot on the hammer bit. So with that being said, overall, super self-explanatory process, and did a good job, shaved off a 1/4 poundish. So on to the next part of the video, where we're going to be putting in the springs. All right, so for this step, I've taken the liberty of removing the springs from the firearm. You don't have to disassemble it any more than that. You just need the 2 assemblies. Now, if you remember in my previous video, where we held the spring depressed using the nail or safety pin or whatever the case may be, paper clip, well, now we have to purposely undo that while it's out of the firearm so we can replace these springs. So you want something small that you can easily and controllably put pressure on the spring in order to remove that screw, because we have to get that spring off now, and then put it back on after the fact. So with that being said, the hammer strut one is a whole lot easier. You can actually do it with your hands. It's easier if you wear gloves, but you pretty much just have to put on the inside of your knuckle that hammer strut, and then hold on to the long edge of the of that plate and pull it back enough to where you can shimmy out that nail. Once you shimmy out that nail, it's going to release. Be careful to hang on to it. Hang on to your grip, because it is going to come out just like so. And now you can replace with this other spring and put it back the exact same way. Putting it on is going to be a little bit more difficult, but put it back in the pit of your hand like that, and you can get it on fairly efficiently if I don't get it pinched in my gloves. Hang on. All right, so now we got our space, and going to slide that nail right back in, just like so. And then we're going to do the same thing. This one is actually far more difficult because it's a lot smaller of an assembly. I'm going to attempt to put my gloves on and see if I can't put it into my hand like the first one. But this one can be a bit of a pain in the rear because there's not really a good way to remove this one and be able to get it back in. Removal's fairly easy, but yeah, just like that. Putting it back on is going to be the difficult part. So also, I don't know what in the factory that white stuff is on there, but all right, we're going to try this as a handle. And maybe we'll be able to do it with one hand. Let's see. Oh yeah, piece of cake. Oops. Careful which way you are. Okay. So you want to be careful which way that you are putting the screw back in on this one specifically. On the other one, it doesn't really matter. But on this one specifically, because it's got this directional piece, you're going to have to pull that that nail out one way, or that paper clip out one way. So you want to make sure that you have that nail in the correct way. Okay, with that being said, we are now going to put it back together with a new spring kit, and then we are going to test the new pull weight. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and put these back in. I will be right back, and we are going to see where we stand. Okay, color me impressed. We took out the old springs. We put in the new springs. I put it back together, and there is a significant difference in the between the factory and the new springs as far as weight and overall operation. So I don't know how much, but I would say we're somewhere in the 9.5 to 10 range, which is huge. So let me throw this into the vise, and I'll be right back, and we'll take some measurements, see where we're at. The final part of this video is to take our final measurements using our pull gauge. I have the revolver secured in the vise, and now we're going to see how much of a difference those springs and shaving down those high points actually made. Eight flat. Eight and an eighth. 8 1/4, 8 flat, 8 1/4. So the average there is about 8 1/8. That is a huge difference from the 11 1/4 to 11 1/2 that we started with. So I'm happy. The final part of this video, which we will get to in just a second, is headspace and timing using our go and no-go gauges. So I will be right back. I'm going to get set up. Okay, so now we're going to test out each chamber using headspace gauges. We have a no-go and a go. The cylinder should not shut with the no-go, and it should shut with the go. So the first thing you want to do, just to help you keep track of what you've done, is the first one you're going to start with. You want to take an everything pencil and just make a tiny little mark, so you know. So we're going to take the no-go gauge, and we're going to put it in there, and it should not close. And it doesn't. And then we're going to take the go gauge on that same chamber, and it closes and locks. Then we're going to work clockwise from there. The next chamber, put in the no-go gauge. It should not close, and it does not. And then take that out, put the go gauge in, and it should close and lock, and it does. And we're just going to do one last one. Let's try one on the other side, just to make sure it's not off axis or anything. So we're going to go opposite the white mark. No-go, does not close. And go, closes. So the revolver is properly timed. And that concludes the video. So thank you for watching this video. My name is Joe with Tufel Gun and Armory. Be sure to like and comment below if you have any questions or comments. And also subscribe to the channel. It's the best way we grow together. Until the next video, I'll see you later.